stakes here. But I mean, too often he was made the butt of jokes, and had too many one-liners, just for the heck of it. Like every scene ends on some kind of like, "Oh, she's your wife," It's like, so like you put a laugh track in this movie. I feel they tried to add so many stingers. So
this is not Batman and Robin, okay? I don't know. Mike, what are your thoughts on the comedy here?
For the most part, I don't have a problem with it. I think some of the jokes are a little out of place, like the sunglasses, at the start of the movie, just because it's like this is the first time that we're seeing this character, and it's like, oh yeah, man, he's such a badass, and then he puts on, star sunglasses, and it's like, oh, look how goofy he looks, like that's like basically the joke, and it's like it's not even like a funny joke, you know what I mean? But for the most part, I don't have a problem with the humor in it. It's fine with me.
I'll say this. I'll give you this, Brandon. When I first in the theater, when he's in the gas station, and the guy's like, "Are you going to pay for this?" and he looks at him, he says, "Talk to the head." I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I know people hate on that, but I did think that was hilarious, and it still does make me laugh.
See, to me, the humor works, and the reason why it works for me is because the first two movies are so perfect unto themselves that any major fan of the first two Terminator movies is going to be coming into this film with their backs up, ready to hate it the first time that they see this movie, right? So, because the first two were so beloved. So, in my opinion, it's a perfect way of disarming the audience and saying, go with it, have fun, this is going to be a fun ride, just go with it. And I watched this movie 6 times to prepare for this podcast, okay?
Are you serious?
6 times. I am serious, okay?
God.
So I watched it, and I'll tell this differently. I watched it a couple weeks ago.
Brandon.
I watched it a couple weeks ago, and I've told you behind the scenes, I've got time where I'm listening to commentaries now. There's 3 commentaries. I watched the 3 commentaries, plus there's a maximum movie mode that you can watch, which is like the pop-up footage. And I watched it again tonight while I was waiting for us to go. So in the last couple weeks, I've seen it a ton. And you know what? It hasn't dropped an ounce for me. And every single time I've watched this, when he walks into the bar and they zoom in on that ladies' night sign, I cackle every time I see that sign. Because it's such a ludicrous situation to have this buff guy walk naked anywhere he goes, that they're playing with it in a way that's, again, similar to the first movie in that he's going into a bar, but different. And again, the way they disarm it with the stripper taking his clothes, when the guy says talk to the hand and he literally grabs it and talks to the hand, by the time they put the glasses on, which is such an iconic part of this character, it's the way they pull it out of the screen is, again, it's disarming. And then he steps on it, like we've seen in every Terminator movie so far, right? So, I don't know, like, the jokes for me, they fire on all cylinders in this movie. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Here's a fun fact. That shot of, like, him stepping on the sunglasses, that's the last shot of the first reel. I know this because when I was putting together the movie, I saw that shot, and I'm like, why is there a shot of some Elton John sunglasses in this movie? It's weird.
See, the movie, it's as a parody of itself and the franchise, it works very well. For all the points you said, Brandon, hey, you guys remember this? We're going to make it funny now. So it works on that level, but that's not what they should be doing with Terminator 3. Terminator 3 should not be a parody of itself, and that's what I feel that it is.
Speaking of which, yeah, that's the other humor in this movie which doesn't work for me, is the Dr. Silverman bit. Oh, my God.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Oh, my God. What's going on? Why is
it's
this
so
guy
forced.
in this movie?
I don't know.
Oh.
I think it's perfect. I don't know. I'm not an apologist for this movie, but I like this movie, and I think people are nuts.
He does. I like his acting in it.
He's a little over the top.
It's insane things. Like, it's amusing, but it's so contrived, and that's the problem here.
Yeah, the big problem is that he's in it. You know. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway.
To me, yes, it's a little over the top, the way he's like, just like, you go into that thing and it's like, and you just have nightmares and whatnot. It's a little, I liked seeing him, but yes, the scene is a little over the top and goes on a little too long. But I like seeing him, and I think it's fun.
I'll tell you, as someone who has an issue with the comedy here, I'll tell you another moment that still always makes me laugh. They're in the back of the car, and she's like, "Oh, look at you sitting there like the bad boy thing still works." And he he knocks on the thing and knocks on the door. Arnold opens it. He says, "Tell her who I am." It's like, "You are John Connor, leader of the resistance and last hope for all mankind." And then the window just closes. It's just, I always find that a funny line as well. But
the stuff with Arnold, it's situational comedy. Like, the lines are funny, but I don't think that, like, it's not that they're not trying to be funny, because the lines are funny, and I think they're well written and they're clever, which is what makes them funny. Like when John Connor's trying to commit suicide, and he's like, "You're some goddamn machine," and he's like, "Cybernetic organism." Like, just
no, I hate that. I hate that.
It's a corrective line.
He would never
say that. But it works. Okay, and when Kate Brewster's screaming in the back, and he's just like, "Relax!" Like, it's just funny. It is funny. It is really good stuff.
It does hit and miss. I don't argue with it. I just think they turn it up to 11. It needs to be like a 6.
It needs to be a 6. So.
Well, I'll tell you something that really bothers me, though. One last thing about this. Okay. Not the comedy, but talking about it. They're in the car, right? Arnold saves John. They finally have a moment. He looks him over, throws him back in his seat. I like how he kind of inspects him to make sure he's okay, much like the way Sarah did when they met up in the second film. But then John is like, "You don't remember Sarah Connor, Cyberdyne, Hasta La Vista Baby?" And he's like, "That was a different T-101. It's like, "What, do you guys just come off an assembly line?" Exactly. It's like, yeah, we know that. That is so stupid. John Connor is the one person who would understand this, and that's purely in there just for the audience, and that's insulting your intelligence of you, the audience, and the character.
That's the thing that Max always says. He's like, that one scene proves that John Connor is the dumbest person in the history of mankind.
You can't tell me that didn't bother you, Brandon.
Yeah, it's not a good line, but it doesn't make me hate the movie.
No, it's the character. It's like he legitimately.
I said that. I don't like Nick Stahl, and I don't like the direction they took John Connor.
Well, it has nothing to do with the direct. It has to do with him as a character being an idiot. He saw the Terminator get lowered into lava 10 years ago. This is not the same Terminator. He knows they come off assembly lines. He knows this information. And that is just for the audience.
Travel.
So,
this is time travel.
Yeah, but
anything.
it's also something which he's been. It's like the single event he's been training for his entire life, right?
I'm not justifying it. It's not a good line. I don't like it. It's not good. I don't know. But I'm just not freaking out over it.
You guys keep on talking about Nick Stahl being bad or whatever. I disagree with that. I like him in this movie. I think that he's good, and I buy him as John Connor.
Oh, cool. Good.
I don't dislike him either, Mike. I think he's fine. I just you miss it. I'm looking for more connective tissue, and Edward Furlong being gone is a problem. But I think Nick Stahl did fine, so I don't dislike. He's not a negative. He's on the pros and cons charts. He's not on the cons charts for me in this movie. So
Brandon, when you were like, "Oh, cool, good," like that reminded me of like this morning when I went to get a bagel at Great American Bagel, which I do every morning. And I walk in, and I'm like, "Can I get a sesame bagel, extra toasted with butter?" And the woman there is like, "Sesame?" And she says that like it's like, "Oh, that's an interesting choice." When like she knows that it's the same thing that I get every day. I don't know, just that idea of like, "Oh, cool, good, I'm happy for you." Oh, sesame?
No, I like having contrary opinions when it's not Zach.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'll just tell you, it's so minor, but there's one thing that I absolutely despise in this movie.
Okay.
And it's right at the beginning when they show old John Connor and he's got this burnt American flag behind him. I'm Canadian. This is a global phenomenon. Give me a break with the American patriotism is not necessary by having him having this wretched flag that he's fighting for behind him. It's a global problem that they're in the middle of. It's like the end of Man of Steel when they're like, "How do we know you're not going to attack America?" It's like, give me a break. He's Superman and he's the hero of the world. Shut up.
And James Cameron's Canadian, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that's was a ridiculous thing to add, and I don't know. That's just like
well,
all the things for me to get hung up on.
No,
compare that compare that little snippet and all the flash forwards of the future war here with all the CGI and all this stuff to compare to what we got in Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is infinitely better. Infinitely better.
Yeah, the special effects in Terminator 2 are way better.
Yeah, but the tangibility of the world and all that, it just looks so CGI. Like, look, we can make an armor of T-850s now, like just because.
I love the beer bottle transition.
Yeah.
That drops my jaw every time I see it. I love it when they get the skulls and then they pull up out of the water. I love that.
I have never in the first two movies, and not really in this one either, do I buy the future stuff. It always looks fake to me. It always feels like they're on a set. It doesn't work at all. I don't think that the future stuff has ever worked until Salvation.
Oh, see,
which is a very different take on the look, but one which I think is much more effective. Anyway,
it's like it looks like traffic.
Yeah,
depending on traffic conditions.
And it also looks like
Funny line.
Children of Men.
Mad Max. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so we got to talk about. This is why I can't believe when I saw your Letterboxd rating, which I won't ruin right now, Zach. This opening crane chase is absolutely phenomenal and not worthy of the rating that you gave this movie, simply based on the crane chase at the beginning of
It's
this
a
film,
good car chase.
Perfect.
The Matrix Reloaded has a great car chase, too. That doesn't make it a great movie, Brandon.
But it is a great movie.
Yeah,
so we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that
when Matrix
eventually.
4 comes out, I'm very excited about that, by the way.
Yeah.
If it's not called The Matrix Resurrection, what a waste, right? It has to be called that, right? Can we all agree on that?
That'd be good.
Good, very good. Yeah, the crane chase is cool. I'll drive. He's funny. He's a Terminator. He's saying things. Yeah, it's a cool action beat. It is. I don't disagree.
Yeah,
but that doesn't like make
That's
it a
all you gotta say
4-star
on it?
movie
That's it?
for me.
Oh my god! When that crane flips over, that is like off the rails. That is just amazing. That whole sequence it's like nonstop for like 15 minutes or something like that. Like it's amazing.
Yeah,
I love that it's like dawn. Like, when do you see that in a movie? How creative is that? When do you
to shoot in the daylight?
No.
Very
no.
creative.
To transition slowly
Okay.
from nighttime to daytime. That's amazing. Okay. I love seeing unique things like that. I like seeing movies when they take place in the winter because you don't see the winter very often. Why? Because it's crappy filming conditions, right? So when people choose to do something different, like filming a giant car chase at dawn, 6 a.m, and have it take place at that time is really cool and really creative, and I wish people would do things like that. It's not easy to do, because when you're filming, you don't have a lot of time when you're doing that. They CG'd some of the skies. I listened to the commentary. Some of the skies are CG, right? And they made the transition slower, quicker with some of the transitions, because some scenes were actually night, and so they CG'd brightness to them, right? So and then they color corrected day for night for some of the other shots.
There's some other movie that does that. Some other movie that I just watched recently that does the same thing. I forget what it was. Anyway, yeah, I really do like the car chase a lot. It works for me because the thing that I love is that you can like really feel sort of like the weight and the impact of these things. You know, like things get like knocked over or whatever. Yeah, I don't know. But I know that Tarantino is a big fan of this movie. And I think he's talked about the car chase, too, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong about that. But
well, we should have Tarantino as my co-host.
Yeah, you can get him to come on and talk about the...
Sorcerer.
Yeah, or the Jackie Brown cinematic universe or whatever. So...
Well, I want to ask you guys this.
I don't know that I got more to talk about.
One last thing I want to ask you guys. I remember in the theater, I thought this was a really cool idea, was the fact that John Connor was dead in the future. The T-850 in this film is the one that assassinated John Connor. And I'm like, that's a really cool idea. I like that because they chose him because of his childhood experiences and all that. That makes a lot of sense. And Catherine Brewster's the one that sends him back. That's why he obeys her and not John. Cool, right? Mm-hmm. And I always thought this, although I don't know what to think about it now because just think about this logically. This has to go with John Connor being an idiot. Like, he knows. The one Terminator he knows is the Arnold, is the 101. And that's the one that got close to him to kill him. Like, of all